So, hi everybody. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Brunch with Boston Buddies. Today we have Olympic athlete, runner extraordinaire, coaching pioneer, numerous authors to his name, and lifelong running advocate, Jeff Galloway. Welcome to the brunch.
Well, Vince, I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. I guess I first want to start out. How are you doing these days with everything that's going on in the world?
Well, I miss not getting out there and helping people. My MO normally is to be on the road about 70% of the time in front of an audience over 200 times a year, and I love it. People have so many questions and they have problems, and I've worked through those with over 500,000 runners individually over the last 45 years. And I'm very proud to say that I can give solutions to practically every problem that comes up. And I love doing that. And I can't be out there, but I've initiated a number of online classes, 1-hour classes dealing with specific things. So I'm able to continue that. And I love the opportunity to talk about running with you and your counterparts out there. I've been on a number of shows during the last 2 weeks.
Okay, I think this group would be the group for you because we like to be injured.
Well, you're right, and I'm proud to say that I have not had a single running injury in over 40 years, going on 42 years now. And so I do have a lot of solutions that can keep people injury free.
That's pretty amazing over that period of time, just to get no plantar fasciitis, so pulled hammy, nothing. Wow, no. That's impressive.
I don't even knock on wood anymore. It's all about having the right run, walk, run each day, having the right use of my method of run, walk, run. Mm-hmm. So that you don't build up stress on the weak links. We all have weak links. I certainly have them. But right. If you diffuse the stress buildup by strategic walk breaks from the beginning, you don't have to go through the aches, pains, exhaustion, puking, and the negatives.
Right. Yeah, I guess for those that haven't heard of the run walk method, maybe can you give a little bit of background about like when that started, when you figured that out, and the purpose of it?
I was in the Munich Olympics, 1972, and the year after that, I opened the first exclusively running specialty store in the United States called Phidippides. I'm proud to say that even though we are struggling now, we are still alive, and we even have online now to try to take up the slack because of what's happened. But I will tell you that in 1973, when I opened my Phidippides store, there were very few runners. And so I had to do something to bring customers in. And of course, we're getting back to that now. But what I did is teach classes. I taught, the first class I taught was beginning running. And there were 22 that signed up, and none of them had done any running at all for at least 5 years. So these were true novices, and I realized that I'd never worked with a group like this before, but I wanted to keep them running. I wanted this to be a lifelong thing for them, and I do hear from several of them every year who are still doing this. But the bottom line is, walking was the generic way that I kept the stress away and kept them injury free. And we had 3 groups. They naturally broke up into 3 different groups based on their current ability level. So I would listen to the huffing and puffing of each group. And as soon as anyone was huffing and puffing, I had them walk until the huff and puff went away. And as a result of that, at the end of 10 weeks, every one of those folks finished either 5 or 10K. But what really impressed me is there were no injuries. And even 6 months later, almost everybody stayed with the program. And those that stayed with the run, walk, run didn't have any injuries. Well, I knew that I was on to something. So I started using it in my clinics that I began in 73, 74, and have continued to this day. Our first national training program initiated in 1976. So we actually have been going in training groups. We now have about 50 of those groups, not only in the US, but some overseas. And as a result of this experience and the feedback that has increased dramatically now to over 500,000 people who've gotten back to me when I've given them advice, we've been able to sort out what ratio of running to walking works best based on pace per mile. And as a result of that, we can really keep people injury-free. But the method is simple. It is you insert a strategic walk break right from the very beginning to not only defuse the stress buildup on the weak links, but to reset the fatigue on your calf muscle and other muscles, and to reset the pounding on your feet. So if you're resetting this often enough and consistently throughout, you just don't have the damage that running nonstop does. It's backed up by some very good anthropological research, by the way. I've talked to over a dozen anthropologists that study ancient man, and they tell me that our ancestors, in their strongest opinion, did not do hardly any running and no distance running, because the regular cause of death was starvation, and they weren't about to go out with limited resources and run when they could walk everywhere they went. So they did, and they were amazing walkers, and that's what allowed us to tap in to our endurance heritage of being able to walk day and night, night and day for forever.
Wow. So do you still have like a some or most training plans have like a tempo day, threshold pace, a long run? Do you still have those like variations of runs? It's just you incorporate walking in those types of runs?
Explain what you were talking about threshold of pain or whatever.
I got a threshold run, which like that's something that Jack Daniels preaches, where it's your threshold pace where you can maintain your basically you can burn off the lactate that's building up in your legs and your body, the lactic acid, at a consistent level. It's usually about your 10K pace, so about the pace that you can run 10K in.
Well, I won't get into any evaluation of that. I know Jack. Jack is an amazing physiologist, and he really touts things that have very specific and long names about them and so forth.
Right.
And the bottom line is my whole program is quite simple, and it's based on a lot of common sense. And it's also based on the success of over 500,000 runners that I know of. Right. And so what I include for finishing a race is simply building up a long run every second week at first. And then when the long run, if it reaches 16 miles, you can do that long run every 3 weeks. Okay. And then to maintain the endurance that you would gain on the long runs, you would, the minimum would be 30 minutes every other day. But in order to finish comfortably in a race, I have my coachees go at least the distance of that race. And if they want to run faster, I have them go farther than that. But the pace is extremely slow on these long ones. It's at least 2 minutes per mile slower than one could comfortably go in a marathon. Okay. But there is no pace that's too slow. As a matter of fact, you can actually walk the entire distance of a long run, and you will get all the endurance that you would get. So this actually allows people to go farther and benefit from that extension of extra endurance. For example, we've done numerous surveys finding the benefits of the extension of the long run. And what we found is that when people run or train for a marathon, for example, and they used to run 20 as their longest run, if they follow our plan and go up to 26 miles 3 or 4 weeks prior to the marathon itself, there's an average of a 15-minute time improvement. And if they go even farther, we recommend 29 miles for those that have a time goal. The average improvement from having a 26-miler and then going up to 29 miles in a future program is another 11 minutes of time improvement. So there's just a whole lot of benefit from the long run. That's the one part of the program that bestows more benefits than anything else. Now, if you're talking about performance, which obviously most people that are training for Boston are, my other components are having 1 mile repetitions that are done on alternate weekends with the long run. So they're done every second week in the beginning, every third week, and those mile repetitions are done 30 seconds faster than one wants to run in the race itself. And walk breaks are taken in between, a 5-minute walk break to recover. And even during the mile repetition, a person would use a variation of the run, walk, run that they plan to use in the race itself.
Okay.
2 other components. Basically, I am totally convinced that one can run even a very, very fast marathon on only 3 days a week training if that's all you have to do. And so the Tuesday workout would be some form drills that I've found to be very effective, cadence drill and an acceleration glider, followed by some race rehearsal segments. Now this is sort of getting into what Jack was talking about, because these race rehearsal segments are half miles or 1 mile repetitions that are run right at the race pace. And then you can try different run, walk, run configurations in there. But you're getting pace judgment, you're feeling what it's like to run at that pace, and you're also trying out different strategies so that you can find one that'll work best for your race.
Okay. So for the 1 mile repeats that you were speaking about, how many should one do? Like how?
Well, we start out at 4 of them in the early part of the season, and then we add 2 additional on each workout, getting up to 14 of those at the end of the season. That 14 times 1 mile is done 2 weeks before the race itself.
Okay, so you're running 14 miles at about 30 seconds faster than race pace.
With a 5-minute walk in between each mile.
Okay. Oh wow. And then it's the following week, because you said it's every other week in between the long runs. So the next weekend you do a run, walk, long run. And what do you start out with? And then it sounded like you can go up to 29 miles in some instances.
It would depend on what a person's current longest run would be.
Okay.
And the other determinant would be how many weeks you have before the race. So what we traditionally do is with an individual, say I'm coaching someone by email, I call it e-coaching. Mm-hmm. I would look at the goal date, the major goal date, and I would count back from there. And it would determine where the starting amount would be. And there would either, if a person was not up to that mileage yet, then there are 2 things that could be done. The first one is to transition over 2 or 3 long runs up to that. And then the other one would be to simply walk the extra distance or walk the whole first long one. And that just automatically resets the endurance so that you can go on with the program from there.
Okay. That's great. Yeah, we've got, I think we've got 22 weeks or so, 21 or 22 weeks until Boston. So we've got some people that are going to be starting to train again in a couple of weeks. So
absolutely.
I think that this conversation will definitely be enlightening for a lot of runners, because that long run is dreaded by a lot of people. So I think the most I've ever done is like 22 miles once. Typically I'll do 20 or less. I know Hanson's preaches 16 or a 2-hour run, but there's all sorts of theories out there. I guess it really depends on what works. I just know I did a run a couple of weeks ago with one of the other members in the group, and he's much faster than me, Jose. And I had to stop, and we took a walk break after about 6 miles, and then we were only doing eight miles. And those last 2 after that walk break were about 30 seconds faster than the rest. And I was tired after 6 miles, but somehow we did that walk break and I was able to come back and we were a lot faster those last two.
It happens all the time. People are so amazed, and they email me. I've averaged about 100 emails a day from folks over the last 35 years. And every day there's at least one or two that come to me with the surprising finding that they run faster with walk breaks. And they think they're the first ones that have ever discovered this. But it's true. And the reason is that if you put those walk breaks in before you're spent, then you're able to have strength at the end instead of slowing down. And if you're not slowing down, your times are going to be faster. You're going to feel better. You're going to recover faster. And there are fewer aches and pains.
Yeah. The first marathon I ever ran, somebody was doing your method. I hadn't heard about it yet. This was 10 years ago. And I was running, and then he would run past me. And then I'd be just slogging along, and then he'd be walking and I'd pass him. And then the next mile, he'd come flying past me. And we did this almost the entire race. And I went home and I Googled like run, walk, marathon. And that's when I found out about your method and stuff. But it was pretty cool. He looked a lot less stressed than me, I'll tell you that.
Well, it's true. And again, it gets back to our roots. This is what our ancient ancestors did. And it gives each person control over how they feel. Long runs never have to be miserable again. Now, they're going to be tiring, but they don't have to be miserable.
Mm-hmm. And you're running slower too. You said 2 minutes slower than marathon pace for that long run.
At least. And there's one other adjustment that's crucial, and that is due to heat. So as the temperature gets above 60, we slow our folks down 30 seconds per mile slower for every 5 degrees of temperature increase above 60.
Okay.
And with that, there would be an adjustment in the run, walk, run also. Now, let me say one more thing about the long run, the distance of the long run. What we found, again, in numerous surveys, is that people in marathons tend to hit that wall within about a mile of their longest long run. And so the question I ask people when they want to set the distance of what their long run is going to be during a season is, where do you want to hit the wall? I would prefer to hit it at mile number 27.
That's true. That's good advice if we can do it. On a separate topic, we had Amby Burfoot on here yesterday. And
yes.
He was a roommate of yours and Bill, right? Bill Rogers, the three of you?
Well, Bill wasn't a roommate of mine, but we were teammates at Wesleyan, and it's one of the most remarkable coincidences of people that meet in college, especially athletically, because there were no scholarships. There still are no scholarships in athletics at Wesleyan. And Amby, who won the Boston, and Bill, who's won 4 Boston, 4 New York, and me in the making the Olympic team unexpectedly, and then going on to coach so many people. We were there at the same time. We're still fast friends. It's wonderful part of life.
Yeah. You made the or actually before the Olympics, you actually ran the first Peachtree, right? And won?
I did. I was the first winner, but you have to realize there were only 110 runners, and it was a Southern race. I think maybe there were 2 people that race that were outside of the South, but I was a hometown boy, and I am very proud of having won it that first year.
Right, you were instrumental in making that the race that it is today, actually. I mean,
well, I came back. I actually went to graduate school right after the Peachtree. I went to Florida State, got my master's, and then I actually stayed around Tallahassee after teaching school for a year, and I came back to Atlanta in 1975, so 5 years later, and became the assistant race director. And our team grew the race from 1,200 to 12,000 in 3 years. And
Wow.
we did it because we were able to enlist the sponsorship of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And I totally credit them and Jim Kennedy for seeing the vision of this event that we said we thought would happen, and they made it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the largest 10K in the country, I believe, right? It's 4th of July every year.
It is.
Yeah.
I've heard that there are a few 10Ks in the world that are bigger, but most of those that are bigger don't charge admission.
So that was 1970. You did Peachtree and won that. Then 1972, you qualified for the 10K or 10,000 meters.
That's right.
Olympics? And that was in Munich.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
it was. It was an amazing series of events because I was totally not expected to make that Olympic team. And I went up to altitude for 8 weeks and trained with Frank Shorter and Jack Batchelor. And that was really what did it. And I really credit Frank for providing low-cost housing up at Vail to be able to afford that. It was really an amazing journey and so many unexpected things. I actually wrote a narrative early this year, ramping up towards the Olympic trials. And if you're interested in this, I can send you that narrative.
Sure.
I think you'd enjoy some of the stories in there.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. I can post it on our page. I'm sure all 10,000 members would probably enjoy reading that.
Well, I'll send that to you.
That's great. That's great. Can you talk a little bit about Munich? I mean, that was a pretty historic year with what went on there.
There were literally hundreds of significant things that happened. It was an amazing Olympic experience because it was the rebirth of Germany as a cultural powerhouse in Europe, and they wanted it to be such a showcase, and they really pulled out all the stops to be able to do that. And overall, they did a good job. I mean, they made some mistakes here and there, but they were certainly ahead of the curve from what had been done, even in the security area, but no one could have expected what happened.
Right.
But the ability to connect with my friend and mentor, Bill Bowerman, to meet so many folks from around the world who I still connect with from time to time. And then the ability to see Europe. It was my first trip to Europe, my first international race. I was really wet behind the ears. I was overwhelmed, really, but I learned so much, and it reset my expectations of what I wanted to do in life.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you were one of those rare athletes. You qualified for the 10,000 meters, but you were an alternate for the marathon.
I was, and the story there is my good friend Jack Batchelor, who was the founder of our Florida Track Club, as he was coming down the final stretch of the 10K, which was what he wanted to qualify in, he was passed by the son of the mayor of Eugene, where the trials were being held. The crowd was really pulling John Anderson, who became a Boston winner a few years later. But they were pulling him along, and he responded, and he passed Jack only about 30 yards from the finish line. But Jack was exhausted, and he was weaving, and he bumped John as John went by. And an official disqualified Jack from the race. And I've never seen this before since in a 10K, when there really was no reason for disqualification, but he was. And the significance was that in that Olympic trials, the marathon trials were held 1 week later. So we ran the 10K. The sequence of events was done according to the Munich schedule. Okay. And so 1 week before the marathon trials, we ran the 10K trials. And I unexpectedly came from dead last place at the 1 mile mark to second place behind Frank and qualified for the team. And it was glorious. And Frank and I were waiting at the finish line, and we saw all this drama go by, and Jack was disqualified. Well, we were just blown away by this. And so I spent the next week running with Jack, and we talked over strategy because we wanted him to go with us to Munich. And so we talked about a strategy that could get him through.
Mhm.
And I paced Jack through. He had two things going against him. The first one was that he had only run about 17 miles as his longest run, which at that level puts you way behind. And then the other obstacle he had is that he tended to go out way too fast in all of his races. But in marathons, of course, you pay for that dearly.
Right.
Well, I have been a pacing metronome. I'm proud of that. And so my role was to hold Jack back in the beginning, stay right on pace, and then cheer him on when he got exhausted at the end.
Mhm.
And we lucked out. I mean, it was a really hot day. And as a result of it being about 90 degrees at the start of the race, a lot of people went out way too fast. And we were 100th place at the mile, and we just picked people off. I mean, just kept picking them off. And then at 21 miles, we moved into a tie for third place. And I have to tell you, it was rather bizarre because I had really been holding us back. And I really, and I had trained in Florida for 2 years, so I was heat acclimatized. And it wasn't jogging, but it was really an easy pace for me. And Jack was struggling, but I cheered him on, and we got into that stadium. The crowd got on their feet thinking there would be a horse race for the remaining place, third place. And I just ran right alongside Jack, and right at the finish line, I dropped back. So it would be clear that he was the official qualifier, even though we ended up with the same time.
That's amazing. I mean, you sacrificed your a second Olympic event. That's pretty. It's really unselfish of you. That's a pretty amazing.
No regrets. Jack is to this day just a good friend, and he was in need, and he really deserved to run in the Olympics. And I have to tell you that a lot of the commentators on track and field and the officials and so forth, experts, so-called experts in the field, were saying how Bowerman's choice to run the Olympic schedule so that the marathon was run so close to the track trials was a big, big mistake, and we would not end up with a very good Olympic team. Well, those critics were absolutely dead wrong, because we finished first, fourth, and ninth. Jack was ninth. It is the best finish ever, before or since, in the Olympics.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Yeah. I read on your Wikipedia page that was one of your proudest moments, was the actual feeling off at the end there and helping him qualify. That's pretty amazing.
To help a friend do something like that, there's no way to describe the joy of that.
I agree. Hey, we have one of our members, Ken Smith. He said, I ran a 157 half last month using 215/30, and I was passing people at the end. So there you go. It worked for him.
It's really amazing. Even in short distances, I have an e-coach client who's a very good friend of mine. He's 83, and he runs in the national track championships for age group runners and veterans and masters regularly. And it took him about 2 years before he bought into my run, walk, run for the shorter races, like the mile and the 5K. But he went from finishing pretty far back in the rankings to winning national championships, or being in the top 3 to 5 now.
Wow.
In 5K, for example, he won the National Cross Country Championship in San Diego in December, and he ran 3 minutes, and then he walked 20 seconds or so. So every 3 minutes he was doing that, and he did not catch the top 10, get up with them, until the last mile. And then he went right by every single one of them and ended up winning the race by, even though he passed the lead about 200 yards to go, he came in about 50 yards ahead at the finish, because the non-walk break takers, their legs were dead, and so they were slowing down. And this is really what happens.
Wow. I'm gonna have to try this method. It sounds great. And I am not a high mileage guy to begin with, so I'm fine with doing it. If we only do 3 days a week, I'd be happy.
Well, it really does work. I mean, we've had quite a few people break 3 hours on a 3-day-a-week program.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons was they came into this 3-day-a-week training having been running 5 to 7 days a week. So their legs were just tired all the time. And
Mhm.
once they went to 3 days a week, the legs recovered and they also didn't tend to get injured.
But even though they were sub 3, they still took walk breaks during the actual marathon, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have heard now from well over 200 people who were not able to break 3 hours by running nonstop, who now have broken 3 hours by having run, walk, run from the beginning.
Wow, that's impressive. Another member, Lisa Ryan. I've been doing run, walk, run since 2014 and love it. It got me BQ, marathon PR, and a half PR as well. So there you
Way
go.
to go, Lisa. You've got a lot of great running ahead of you.
Great. Let's see. We got a lot of people. Susan Barron, our running club in LA uses the Galloway method, which is especially beneficial for new runners training to do their first marathon.
Well, that is so super, and spread the word. And by the way, there are a lot of people today who have gotten discouraged due to the lockdown and so forth. And I'm going to be addressing some of those issues on Saturday in what I call a town hall of running.
Yep.
And it's going to be from 5 until 6 p.m. on Saturday, this coming Saturday.
Okay.
And you can find out more details at jeffgalloway.com. COVID-19 will be the bug that you click on.
Yep. I saw on Facebook there was an event scheduled for it. So I before this I went and I said I was going to go. I want to hear that town hall.
Good. Good. I'm also offering some 1-hour classes on specific topics where I will go into the run, walk, run on how to build endurance, how to stay motivated. When I wrote my mental training book, I discovered a treasure trove of things that can give people, particularly runners, control over how they feel and be able to turn their attitude around within usually a few minutes.
What is that book? What's the name of that one?
How's that?
What's the name of that book?
Mental training.
Mental training. Okay. Yeah, you've written a lot of books. How many do you have to your credit to date?
32 books, and they're specific to various categories. Of course, the mental training speaks for itself. Most of the titles speak for themselves. 5K, 10K, nutrition for runners, which I wrote with Nancy Clark, and just a whole lot of good people who have contributed and supported me and helped me in my writing efforts.
You have one in particular that this group would probably be interested in, the Boston Marathon, how to qualify.
That's exactly right. Not only does that have the training information that I've been talking about and the schedules for all of the listed Boston Qualify goals, which of course we now know that we have to run faster than, but all you do is you bump up to the next goal and you use that schedule for whatever you want to do. But it also has a lot of other informative parts of the book, the mental training side, the nutrition side, and a course description mile by mile that was dictated to me by Bill Rogers. Bill and I and my wife Barb drove the car while Bill and I talked about each mile, and I jotted down what he said. And so we have that listed. So if you want to review what the course is like, maybe you're a little rusty in your memory, that book will do that for you. And all of my books come autographed from jeffgalloway.com.
Okay, then you can go to the jeffgalloway.com and order all the books there, right? Are they available on Amazon as well, or any other outlets?
I'm sure they are. They don't come autographed though.
Okay. Okay. Couple of other achievements there, like 1973, I read you ran a 47:49 10 miler.
Yes, I broke the American record.
Right. That's pretty amazing. What race was that? What race was that?
It was actually during an hour run
Okay.
on the track at North Carolina State University.
Okay. Nice. That's impressive. We have a 10-mile race here in Philadelphia every year called the Broad Street Run. And
Yes.
yeah, the 47:49 would probably win that easily.
Well, a lot of my racing experiences like that were really surprises. I just stayed with the consistency of my training, and often it didn't look like it was coming in the right direction. But if I was patient, it usually occurred.
hmm And then there was a marathon, I guess 1978, the International Women's Marathon.
Yes.
Yes. Now, can you tell a little bit about that? In the Wikipedia, it says that basically really helped bring about the advent of the Women's Olympics in '84 because of that marathon.
Yes, the race director of Peachtree, when I came back to Atlanta in 1975 and served as his assistant, was a fellow named Bill Neese. And Bill and I, again, managed the Peachtree for 3 years. And as we were about to pass the baton on to the next Peachtree race director, we started looking for our next goal and our next mission. And we had to have an event to do. We got hooked on events at that period. Well, I pushed for a women's marathon. I said, there needs to be a women's marathon in the Olympics, and we should do a preview of this. And I knew that I could connect up with a number of coaches around the world that had women athletes who would send them to Atlanta for this. Well, Bill knew the local and regional manager for Avon products.
Okay.
And so we built up a nice proposal and went to him, and he believed that it really would be a good thing for Avon to do this. So he went up to New York and he pitched it to their marketing team. And the marketing team came back and said, no, we're not interested in this type of a thing. And so Bill and I stewed over this because we just knew that it was a perfect matchup of Avon and women. And of course, being an international company, they had a lot to gain from this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we went back to Al Madelmog, the Avon regional guy, and we hit him even harder with this. And he again agreed with us. And he made the decision himself to go up above the marketing team to a higher level boss. And this could, at the time, it could have been disastrous for his career.
Yep.
But I'm not sure whether it was the CEO or one of the second guys there, but they pushed it, and then they came back and agreed to do it. So Bill and I hosted and conducted the very first Avon International Women's Marathon. And about halfway through this campaign, building up to the race, Avon hired Catherine Switzer. And then Catherine took over the whole program. And she did a great job. And it's really to her credit in her ability for PR and the connections and so forth that finalized and sort of sealed the deal for the women's marathon to be in the Olympics. But we're very proud to have started this whole process, planted the seed in Avon's head and corporate head, and then conducted that very first race.
That's impressive. You had, that's a real, mark in history you had there with basically, really bringing the women's Olympics or the women's marathon to the Olympics. That's amazing.
Well, yeah, and I have to tell you that I'm sort of like a Forrest Gump for running. You know how in Forrest Gump movie, Forrest just happens to be at a place at a time when something significant happens. Well, I've been so fortunate. I mean, the running people in my life that continue to come my way, and the events, and my performances both in running, writing, and teaching and coaching. It's a wonderful life, absolutely wonderful life.
That's like Desi says, just keep showing up. Keep showing up, good things will happen.
Yeah, keep being consistent with
Right,
what you're doing, and don't give up when challenges come up, and
right,
good things will happen.
right. Here, I've got a question from the audience here. So Melissa Anderson, she says, I'm worried it wouldn't work for me because so late in a marathon, I feel like if I stopped to walk, I wouldn't be able to run again. When I go into a walk after the finish, I basically almost collapse. I don't want that to happen during the race. Have you seen people have this issue?
Well, it's just a mistaken concept, because what happens is a lot of people try out run, walk, run when they're exhausted. And at that point, if you do that, you definitely will
Really?
slow down.
Yeah.
What I'm suggesting is just the opposite. If you want to run nonstop, the period and part of the race that you should do that is during the last 6 miles and not the first 6 miles, because that's where you can pass tons of people. But the only way that most people are going to be able to run strong in the last 6 miles is to take walk breaks right from the beginning. And what happens with each walk break, if you have it strategically placed, then you will be able to keep erasing fatigue. So you'll get to 13 miles with maybe about 6 or 7 miles of fatigue on your legs. That is a huge deal. You'll get to 20 miles with about 15 miles or 14 miles of fatigue on your legs. And that's why you're able to either hold your pace or actually pick up the pace at the end. Again, we have hundreds of thousands that have reported in how they have improved when they've taken run, walk, run. And just to give you a brief synopsis here, the ratios that you would use based on the 500,000 people that we've tabulated so far are as follows. At a 9 minute per mile pace, we're talking about running for 2 minutes and walking 30 seconds. At 10 minutes, it's running 90 seconds and walking 30. At 8 minutes, it's running 4 minutes and walking 30, and so forth. And it just goes from there. You can find out those ratios in my book, Run, Walk, Run, which gets into all aspects of it and explains the reasons behind it, how to use it in various places, and then what the strategies would be and so forth.
Right. I mean, saving some for the end is especially relevant for Boston, because it's the second half is much harder than the first.
Yes, it is, but mainly because a lot of people simply beat themselves up during the first half. And if you can save those resources by using the method, then you're the one, again, that's passing people. And there's nothing more exhilarating in life than passing people at the end of the Boston Marathon.
That is true. Although I'm usually getting passed. I rarely do well on that course.
Well, there's hope.
Yes. I'm definitely going to get your book right after this call. I'm getting your book. I want to go
Great.
read it. Yeah. But there's some other things that I saw on your website that you offer. You have online retreats, it looks like.
We do. These are wonderful weekends, and actually one of them is a week long. It's out in Lake Tahoe right around the 1st of August, which we have scheduled and we believe probably will happen. No guarantees, of course. But once we get started again, hopefully at that time, we hold these retreats in Carmel, California, the Panhandle of Florida, as well as Lake Tahoe. And we go into every aspect of running and eating and motivation with the chance to have individualization. I do running form evaluations. We do our running drills together so that you get schooled in how that's done. Mm-hmm. And then all these other techniques just come out, and I'm able to work with individuals in this way, as well as write down a training program for their next goal.
That's great. And you also have a half marathon in December?
We do. We have a wonderful weekend in the middle of December. It'll be the 13th of December this year. My wife Barb's 5K is on a Saturday, and
Okay.
my half marathon is on a Sunday. It's a really good series of events. The course is historic. It goes by the Margaret Mitchell House, the Jimmy Carter Library, the Martin Luther King Center, and a lot of other historical landmarks. But it's the coming together of people from all over the world who use the method. And we have Galloway Pace Group. So if you've never tried it before, here is a really safe way to do it. Really experienced people that lead you through the process. And then I'm at the finish line until the last person finishes to award the medal. We give free photographs. You don't have to pay a cent for the thousands of photographs that are up there online. And it's just a fun weekend. So come and join us.
Right. Yeah. It's December 13th, you said?
It's December 13th. The 12th is when Barb's 5K will be scheduled.
It sounds like a great time. We have Boston buddies all over the country. I'm sure that there's some that are there, and we'll show up in force for you.
Well, come on down, because if you live in the northern clime, chances are the weather's going to be a lot better in Atlanta than it is in Buffalo or Winnipeg or wherever.
I'm from Philadelphia, so yes, I'm sure it'll be nicer than Philly.
Usually is.
Now, did you attend the Olympic trials this year?
I did not intend on going to the trials. My schedule on weekends is pretty much booked up most weekends throughout the year, and there's no and this actually happened this year in the marathon trials. I was scheduled to go to the Cowtown Marathon, which I love, in Fort Worth, Texas, and that's where I was instead of the Olympic trials. You know, those Olympic trial people don't need me, but there were a whole lot of people at Cowtown that did.
Yeah. Okay. So what else? You have the coaching services, you said. That's on jeffgalloway.com. People that are training for Boston, anybody on this page can actually reach out and get your services through the website, correct?
Yes, we have two forms of individual coaching. The first one is the one that I do, and I do all the coaching. I mean, you will be connecting directly with me once a week, send in the report as to what happened, and I can fine tune things, explain why things didn't work out and what you can do to change that up. And then we have another program called Customize Galloway Training. Now, this also gives you a customized program to your goal. The difference is, instead of the interactiveness every day that you have questions, as is the case in my e-coaching, the customized has chat rooms where you can interact with our coach there, who is Chris Twiggs. He's our national training officer. Okay.
Wow, you've got a lot of resources for people on this. Like everything's on your website. But yeah, coaching services, online. You have the retreats. You actually have the half marathon and a 5K. You've got the town hall this Saturday, and then you've got just 32 books that people can also take a look at and read and actually help their running. That's just incredible. You really are a true advocate for the sport, and I appreciate you taking the time today to speak with me and speak with the Boston buddies, as we like to call ourselves. And any parting words that you might want to say to anybody that's listening to you today?
Well, Vince, you've done a wonderful job with Boston Buddies. The whole thing about running that differs with other sports is how people come together and support one another in a positive way consistently. Yep. This is what you see in almost every single running group out there. And my mission is to take away the bad stuff. I don't want people to puke. I don't want them to have aches and pains. I don't want them to be exhausted. And and I don't want them to get injured. And all these things can be done away with the right strategy. And that's what you'll find in my books and in my coaching classes and in the coaching. But my overall mission is to help people improve the quality of their life through exercise. And so I encourage each one of the Boston Buddies to go out there and recruit 5 to 10 other folks to come into our wonderful world. And if I can help in any way, I'm behind you all that way.
I love it. I love it. That's so impressive. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk with us. And I hope you get 1,000 people come to your website right now and go sign up and get a book.
Well, thank you so much. And again, don't hesitate. There's a free email service at jeffgalloway.com. If you have this burning question, don't hesitate. And I hope to see you online at our town hall on Saturday.
I'm there. You got it. All right. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.